What's up, everybody? Welcome to the new and improved Basecamp podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Riley. Thank you for tuning in. This is the February-March training issue episode. So we're going to be sitting down with Matt Samet, editor-in-chief at Climbing. He's going to be giving a little preview of the issue, some of his favorite articles and departments. And he's also going to be talking about some of the gear that he's been testing recently. Then James Lucas is going to be sitting down with Will Anglin, co-owner at Tension Climbing. They're going to be talking all things training. So if training's on your radar, if you're looking to improve physically, mentally, technically, definitely want to give it a listen. Will has a lot of good tidbits that definitely are going to help you out in your training. So without further ado, let's get after it and let's talk with Matt Samet. All right, here with Matt Samet on the new and improved Basecamp podcast. How's it going, Matt?
I'm good. It's Friday afternoon, so I'm feeling good about that. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm doing good. I'm heading to Shelf this weekend.
Nice.
Beautiful Shelf.
I've been there before.
Yeah.
I think the first time I went to Shelf was probably 30 years ago, if that gives you any idea of how old I am. So,
do you go to Shelf regularly still, or is that not on your top 10 list
Shelf's
anymore?
not really high on the list. It was a lot of fun in the 80s, those little pockets and that vertical crimpy style, and then Rifle came along, and that sort of supplanted it for me for limestone climbing. But I have good memories of the place.
Yeah, I always forget when I go to Shelf like how historic it is. It really was one of the first sport climbing destination areas in the States, right?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think Shelf, Penitente, Smith Rock, the New, they all kind of emerged in that same period, like mid to late 80s. But yeah, Shelf was, I believe it was like Colorado's kind of first purely sport climbing area. I mean, you know how it is. It doesn't loan itself very well to trad climbing because it's limestone and it's just, there's not really cracks there. If they are, the gear is going to tear out. So yeah, it was, and I think it was kind of inspired by Buick's and the Verdon at the time. You know, people were looking for those clean, sweeping limestone faces. So yeah, it was, one of the first places, with like 5'11", 5'12" sport climbing.
Nice. Well, I'm excited. I love the crowds. I love the dogs. I love the partying at night, the bonfires. It's all good stuff for me.
There you go.
So I want to talk about the February-March training issue, but before we do that, you got back recently from your Cayman Brac trip. We talked about that in the previous episode. How was it?
Oh, we had a blast on Cayman Brac. We left here, I think, December 8th, super early morning flight, driving to the airport. It's like 10, 15 degrees out, dark, cold, miserable wind. It's like, what are we doing? Like, we need to get out of here. And, you fly all day. It's a long flight. Got off the plane in Grand Cayman, and, we're still wearing our kind of Colorado clothes, and it's like 80, 85 degrees and sunny, and everyone's happy and wearing shorts, and there's chickens walking around outside the airport. And yeah, Cayman Brac was great. It's a very small island. It's only like 12 miles long, maybe a mile wide at the widest. So it's very contained, and all the climbing, it's just this limestone island that kind of rises to higher and higher limestone cliffs as you drive north along it. And on both sides of the island, there's just these escarpments. And then at the very tip of the island is this place called the Point, which is the highest part of the limestone bluff. It's like 140 feet tall, and it drops straight to the sea. So, you can kind of sport climb on the sunny or the shady side of the island. You can move back and forth. You can go out to the Point, which is in the shade all day. It's really wild. You start at the top, you wrap straight to the waves, and you're just at these sort of semi-hanging belays right above the waves, which can be big and booming, and they've hollowed out the cliff below you. So on a wild, windy day, they're just breaking right under you, sea sprays everywhere. Super mellow. We only ran into like 5 or 6 other climbers.
Wow.
Yeah, island's not a very big touristic island. I think it's mainly a place where people go to scuba dive. So, it was just sort of us, the locals, and then there's like a bunch of middle-aged scuba divers there, and that's it. Yeah, it was really good, and it's just really fun limestone sport climbing.
Yeah.
Tufa climbing, overhanging, pocket climbing, face climbing, and they've done it up there too with glue-in bolts, which is key because a lot of it's sea cliff and seaside climbing. We
were talking about the titanium bolts.
Yeah, they were nice. They were really nice. Like, you could see some of the old roots, and literally some of the bolts have just like sheared off. Like, I think people didn't even fall on them. They just got so rusty. and crappy that they just like fell off the rock.
Uh-huh.
So it was nice to be clipping good hardware.
Was the climbing style what you were expecting?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was really physical, kind of European style, tufa style limestone. Yeah.
I saw you on your, I think it was your Instagram or Facebook. You called it the South Table Mountain, which, which had me cracking up. For people who aren't familiar with the Boulder area, there's a place in Golden called Table Mountain, which is kind of like a redheaded stepchild, I would say, of the Front Range climbing scene. What did you mean by that? Were they similar in style as well?
I think I was just talking trash. I think people were surprised.
Trash?
Me talk trash. I know. Oddly enough, I kind of broke from character for a minute to talk trash. I think that people were surprised that I was posting photos of me climbing on a tropical island because I never go anywhere. Because I never have any money or anything. But yeah, so I think I was just joking with maybe Peter Beal. He's like, "Where are you?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, South Table Mountain," because it's a little farther south than Table Mountain. Yeah. No, it's definitely nothing like Table Mountain.
Okay, now
I'll give Table Mountain like an F- rating as a climbing area, and I'd give Cayman Bracken an A or an A+.
For people that might want to visit, what should they know about it? Do you have any good beta for people?
I do. You definitely want to rent a car. The cliffs are spread out enough that you need a car. I think the best season, so we went in December, and a lot of the stuff on the south side of the island is really sunny most of the day, and you just absolutely do not want to climb in the sun. It's a hot tropical environment even in December. So I think if you want to be able to maximize your experience, go a little later in the spring, like February into March, because the sun is higher and the south side crags will be in the shade earlier. So there were a few cliffs that we just kind of didn't get to because they were too sunny and warm, or we'd get to them late in the day. And because you're near the equator, like the sun sets at like 5:30 or 6, so you don't have those long afternoons to kind of enjoy some of those crags. Yeah, I'd say that. Bring snorkeling gear. There's lots of good snorkeling around there. Yeah, and just kind of bring your own entertainment. I think that's sort of how Jeff Aki put it to us in the email, because he'd been there and written about it. It's like, don't go there expecting like Ibiza and some party island with raving and all this stuff to do. Like at night, I mean, all you see are stars and beach. So if you want a mellow, quiet, climbing and chilling vacation, it's really perfect.
Did you chill? Did you chill by the beach?
I did. Yeah, we took rental bikes and rode around the island a lot, which is really nice. Yeah, we went to the beach. We snorkeled a little bit. There's the public beach there is one of the few sandy beaches, and there was nobody there ever. I mean, if that gives you an idea of just how empty the place is.
Yeah, definitely.
You go to this huge, beautiful sandy beach, and there was not a soul. So,
did James find any bouldering while he was there?
James and Nina, who were boulderers, they didn't find any. There's shorter limestone stuff you could do, but okay. I think it would probably tear your hands up pretty well. The rock can be pretty spiny there, except kind of on the overhanging stuff. Yeah. They hung up a hangboard, I think, at the beach one day.
Oh, cool. I saw that photo.
Yeah.
Facebook or Instagram.
That lasted all, I think, one session. They're like, yeah, we're going to hangboard every day and stay in shape. And yeah.
All right, let's get into the February-March training issue. We got hot copies. I just read it cover to cover. Great issue.
Awesome.
What were some of the highlights for you in that issue?
The cover, I think, is pretty amazing. It's Nina Williams red pointing one of the crux pitches at Father Time. I think the quote-unquote Index 11D pitch, which, Index is known for its sandbag rating. Yeah. So it's this corner that I think is actually 13B, but, involves a lot of stemming and scumming and stuff like that. It's just a really cool shot. It was taken by Julie Ellison, who is our... the former editor of Climbing, was our senior contributing editor and will be a contributing editor next year. But Julie's, sort of taken off and done her own stuff in the media with working for us and Never Not Collective. Just a really exemplary image, I think. A lot of drama in it. Nina's on an undercling looking up at the crux. Katie Lambert's down there at the belay. Like, it just has that sort of classic climbing feel where it's like big air, big drop, big commitment. Two partners together, getting it done.
Well, real quick, just talking about Julie, she has another feature in there, the School of Rock,
oh yeah,
which is a really great article, and I believe you talked about that in your editor's note. I mean, just the idea of, in high school, getting to travel across the globe to learn about rock climbing, as well as, learning the regular high school curriculum. It's just such a mind-blowing idea, and something I would never even think about while I was in high school, though would have loved to have been able to have that opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy how climbing has, changed and evolved over the years.
Yeah, to think that the sport's big enough to support something like that is pretty amazing. I mean, like when I was climbing in high school, it wasn't on anyone's radar at all. Like people were surprised. I mean, we lived in a city where you could see the mountains and see the cliffs, and most people in my high school were just like shocked that I would go rock climbing. They're like, what do you do? Why? And there were like 3 or 4 of us at the high school who were climbers, and we all kind of stuck together.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what a cool opportunity. She went out to Kalymnos and spent, I think, a week or 2 with them, just kind of shadowing them and climbing with them. But yeah, I thought it was a really great kind of slice of life piece, and just shows like how much potential there is in the sport right now.
Yeah, totally. And it was interesting to hear how a lot of the students were actually indoor climbers who hadn't really climbed outside much, but after traveling around the world, visiting some of, the premier destinations, really fell in love with outdoor climbing and cared less and less about the indoor competitive climbing circuits that they had been involved with in the past.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of sort of moved away from competing, and they're like, oh, I just want to climb outside.
Totally.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're somewhere like Kalymnos and then the Red, and I mean, after a while, you're like, oh, this is a lot more fun.
Yeah, another feature that was in there was the Wide Boys article, which, was really cool to follow the whole progression of them picking the project, training for it, visiting it, scoping it out, returning multiple times. And I won't give away the end, but it was really cool to, follow them along that entire journey.
Yeah, I thought it was. I mean, it was a really unique opportunity. This photojournalist, Tristan Hobson, who's based in Europe, I think originally from Colorado, was like, I'm going out there with the Wide Boys, which is Tom Randall and Pete Whitaker, the UK crack climbing guys, while they try the recovery drink, which is that 14C crack that Nico Favres put up that only has had very few ascents. Yeah, I mean, I thought the beauty for me wasn't just that here's 2 really good climbers getting the shape of their life and trying one of the world's hardest routes. I just felt like it was very relatable because it took this struggle that we all have to climb our hardest and sort of broke it down into its constituent parts. Like they suss out the route, they learn the moves, they learn what they need to do to address their deficiencies on those moves. They go home and train specifically for it. They return to the route. They go back home and train some more. Like they're going through all the same sort of machinations that all of us do to climb our hardest. And I thought Tristan did a really good job of just kind of getting into the nitty-gritty details of it. And it fit well with the training issue because, they did very route-specific training to try to make this climb happen.
Yeah, and kind of throughout all of the training content that I've read in the article, as well as with the interview with Will from Tension Climbing, is it seems like the best training program is the one that you do and you follow through with, and the one that you set up for yourself. There's no best training program that someone can give you.
Right.
It's something you really need to customize for yourself.
Yeah, I think it is. And it has to be something that you stay motivated to do. I mean, if you go to someone and you cook up a training program and everything on that list makes you miserable and unhappy and makes you not psyched to climb, then you're not going to, you might get stronger, but you probably won't be able to apply it because you're not psyched. Yeah, I thought it was good. And it just sort of shows how these 2 guys incorporated training into their lives too, which I think is another kind of key thing for climbers, as we get older and responsibility piles up. It's not like you can just train and climb all the time whenever you want. I mean, like Tom Randall has 2 kids just like me, and he would just like come home at night and have this crazy board in his backyard, this simulating kind of the compression crux of this route, and he'd just go into his backyard and do laps on it, like using what time he had. Yeah, I thought it was a really cool article, and the photos are amazing as well.
So they also in the article mentioned the crucifix, which sounds like this insane project. I mean, do you know anything about that route other than that? I'm pretty sure it's in Utah in the desert.
I believe it's on the White Rim. I know they've been out there a few times. I think maybe done all the moves. We've we had a news update on their last trip to the White Rim, I think last summer maybe, or something like that, last spring. And they went out and tried the Crucifix some and ended up putting up some other routes. But yeah, it sounds like that thing is, a lifetime project probably.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are as good as it gets at crack climbing, and it's I think it's something like, it's like mono finger locks in a giant horizontal roof with like 514 climbing to get there and 514, something like that, 514 climbing after. I mean, just a total nightmare.
Yeah, and also speaking about that, they had the first descent of Century Crack, and in the issue, there's a photo of Danny Parker repeating Century Crack, which was kind of a cool little tie-in there.
Yeah, I thought that was cool, and that sort of works well with the training issue too. If you look online, I wrote a longer piece about Danny's ascent, and he talked about, I mean, he trained like for this route for a year. I mean, talk about dedication. He's like, I want to do that route. That route requires an incredibly specific set of strengths and skills, and I'm going to acquire them. And his wife, Ashley, I think it's Ashley Craycroft, is trying it too. So they train together in their garage. They're both trying to get strong to do the route. So yeah, I thought that was cool.
Okay, let's talk about Tires and Ice, the Andrew Burr feature. I mean, so for me personally, ice climbing is something I can't really jive with for this reason that it just seems like such an arduous task to get to the climbing. It seems uncomfortable, but reading the article, it seems like they had a good time and it's a good adventure for them. Yeah,
I think in that sick, twisted way that ice climbers enjoy, they had a good time, riding their bikes, falling into rivers, getting frozen, getting lost, trying to find the huts. Yeah, I thought it was cool. I mean, it's unique, right? Like the idea that, okay, there's these climbs deep in the backcountry. Yeah, we could walk there. We might get there quicker on bikes or maybe not. But, no matter what, it's going to be an adventure. Yeah, I thought it was cool. Burr, he was with us in Cayman Brack, and he just really likes sketchy shit. So that this is not a surprise to me.
Yeah. So what were some other highlights in the issue for you personally?
Yeah, another feature that stood out to me was Bennett Barthelme's feature Viva Calisa, which is about the kind of the moderate and multi-pitched limestone climbing mixed sport and trad on Spain's Costa Blanca. It's an area that's been written about a lot, and you'll see features here and there, and it's sort of known as this European, winter climbing mecca because it's warm and sunny there. But Bennett's a really funny guy, and he's really good at kind of going out and having these sort of crazy misadventures and then portraying them in print and in photos. And I thought, I don't know, this is one of the liveliest features we've had in a while. You have to really dig into it, but there's this funny sort of dry wit that comes through in a lot of the anecdotes, and just really amazing photos too. They'll get you fired up to go there.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, it looks great.
Well, one of my favorite departments was Andrew Towers grasping at draws. I mean, so for me personally, like I loved Urban Climber, and Andrew was one of the editor-in-chiefs at Urban Climber, and just hearing about, the antics from him moving to San Francisco, expecting to, train a lot, be outside climbing a ton, meeting, a new group of bros to go climbing with, and actually realizing the exact opposite, not really climbing at all, spending a lot of time at the desk.
Right.
And then moving to Colorado and just getting spanked on some moderate boulders. It was pretty entertaining for me.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. It was a good sort of come to Jesus, like self-realization piece. And Towers really good at that self-deprecating humor. Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, it's sort of funny. He moved from the Bay Area where there's lots of gyms and lots of places to train, not a ton of rock. And then he moved to Crested Butte where there's some rock, but it's actually really isolated, small mountain town. Like, you got to find your own fun up there. And if you're motivated to climb, I don't know what you do there in the winter.
Ski, I guess?
Yeah, if you're motivated to climb, you can go skiing in the winter. That's how you address that.
Well, I hope to get out there soon and visit with him because it sounds like he needs some company.
Yeah, he needs help. Everyone go out there and help out Andrew Tower.
All right, well, that issue, the February-March training issue, goes on sale on January 15th. So you can pick that up at your local retailer, or if you're a subscriber, it should be showing up any day. All right, let's move on to gear that you've been testing. What's been really standing out with you as far as gear that?
Well, here, I'll make a little sound. And you try to guess what those are. Well, you can see what they are.
Well, I can see. I won't give it away. Well, I'll give it away now. They're the new C4 Black Diamond cams. Am I correct?
Yeah, they are the new Camelots. I got my hands on these in summer for sort of a preview. So I wrote a preview on Climbing Site. I tested them for like a month or two. Then they had to go back. Then
Where you been testing them mostly?
I tested them mostly in Boulder Canyon and Staunton State Park, which is kind of up in the Platte.
So both granite areas?
Granite areas, yeah, with mixed climbing. I'm trying to think. Have I used them in Eldo yet?
Any flat iron climbing with those?
Yeah, a little bit on mixed routes. Flat irons don't really have much crack climbing, so, kind of hard to use them up there. But they came back to us, and I'm testing them some more for the gear guide. I've been testing them. I put them in partners' hands. I just think, Camelot is, it's iconic, and it's just cool to see them kind of given an update.
Yeah.
And
what are the updates for these?
Things aren't radically changed. It's not like you're going to pick them up and it's going to be a new piece of gear. I think they amped up the color coding so that the slings and the heads are brighter and easier to match. So it's easier and quicker to pull the piece off your harness and go, okay, this is what I've got.
Nice.
Like this one right here, I think I'm holding is the blue, the 0.3. Yeah, it's a little bluer, a little brighter.
Which might not sound like a big update, but when you're like,
you're
hanging,
pumped.
You're pumped. Like you want to pull the right cam.
Yeah, you do. Exactly. Yeah, I really like that. I think they made the trigger pulls more ergonomic and the thumb push more ergonomic too. Yeah, I think they refined those a bit. The cam heads, the double axle, all that's still the same. I think the big thing with these, and I'll pull out the number 4. I know no one can see this because it's a podcast, but so from number 4 on up to number 6, they did this very cool thing where, when you're carrying these big cams in your pack or on your harness, like the lobes they can be giant and they're butterflied out and they're hitting you in the leg and stuff like that. So they had this really savvy idea that you can keep the lobes pulled down and locked down until you're ready to use them. So basically, if you pull the trigger all the way back, there's 2 kind of like little paperclip looking things that hook onto these flanges near the thumb press at the stem of the cam, and then the cam just stays all the way down. Yeah, so it's fully retracted at this point, and it can stay that way on your harness or in your pack until you need it. And then when you need to activate it, you just pull the trigger a little more, and it releases all the way back.
Interesting. So you don't have to like disengage.
No, you don't. You'd be pulling the trigger anyway, right, to place the cam. So you just have to. It's already fully retracted and cammed down, so you just have to give it a quick squeeze, and it'll be all the way open, and then you can pull it down. So it's sort of that same idea like what people do with Valley Giants and at big cams where they would put a stick through the holes in the lobes. But this is like a way better version of that. So I thought that was pretty cool, and that's on the 4, 5, and 6. And yeah, again, it just makes them way easier to carry. I think they got a little lighter too. These aren't the ultralights, but I think they lighten things up a little too.
And those are going to be available spring
2019.
Cool.
Yeah, and I'm back to testing the full set, but I've been very happy with them. There's one, I've been carrying this number 4 around. There's a route in the flat irons I want to put it in, but I keep getting skunked up there by conditions. So
which route is that? Is that third? Oh, you want to say?
What's that? Oh no, it's not. It's not like some secret route. I just want to link the bottom of Discipline and the top of Cornucopia, these old school slabs on the box. And there's like this hole for the number 4 Camelot. But every time I go up there, we keep getting skunked by conditions. The other day, the snow melt was spitting off the lip of the wall. So maybe tomorrow.
It's pretty warm here now.
Pretty warm today.
Cool. So the next issue is the gear guide. You're in the thick of it right now. Anything to be looking forward to on that issue?
I think for gear wonks and gear heads, it's probably the most exciting issue of the year. We have our 5 categories from last year carried over: Basecamp, Alpine, Trad, Sport, Bouldering. We're going to have, I think, 25 pages of new gear, kind of the best and brightest.
Awesome.
So, yeah, I think it'll be cool. There'll be some stuff that we've already reviewed, but that's of such high quality that we're bringing it back. And then just a lot of new stuff that people might not have seen. And then, our big feature is going to be about putting up new routes on Mount Sinai in the Egyptian desert in the Sinai Peninsula, which is a place that has had sporadic climbing activity on and off through the years, but is also a place of, notorious political turmoil, and, all-out wars, terrorist attacks, things like that. And a crew of 4 guys from Wyoming went there and put together a really good article about that. The big wall first ascent's kind of deep in the Sinai, but it looks at the larger issues, the political context, and the ways in which we're all connected, even though the world is obviously a pretty screwed up place right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Matt. Looking forward to seeing that gear guide.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. See ya.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next segment with James Lucas and his interview with Will Anglin over at Tension Climbing. Here it is.
Okay, I'm sitting here with Will Anglin, a 29-year-old, almost 30-year-old from Arvada, Colorado. He grew up on the East Coast and started climbing out there in 2001 at around 12 years old. He's a competitive gym climber. He climbed a bit in the New River Gorge, in the Red River Gorge. Then in high school, he headed out to Black Canyon of the Gunnison and went to school out there at Western State, where he majored in outdoor leadership and resort management with a minor in exercise physiology. Yeah, okay. And he started bouldering more while he was in college. And since then, his climbing has gotten a lot stronger. He's climbed dozens of V12s, V13s. He's climbed Warrior Up in Lincoln Lake and La Planche in the Front Range. They're both V14. He's a certified personal trainer who worked at Earth Treks climbing gyms for a while, for about a decade. And in 2016, he started Tension Climbing with Ben Spaneth and Gabe Adams. And they have their own climbing gym in just South Denver?
North Denver.
North Denver.
Yeah.
And if you've ever been in there, it's an amazing training facility. There's a huge beast wall with a 45-degree spray wall. There's a tension board. There's weights. There's a campus board. There's all kinds of unique training equipment that Will's used, like this undercling on the campus board, so he could simulate the crux move on Warrior Up. And we're just sitting here talking a little bit about training. And I guess my first question for you, Will, is who should be training? I've been climbing for 18 years, and sometimes I wonder, should I be training? What is training?
I think that's probably the bigger question is, what is training?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've seen a lot of people who say they're training, and then I watch what they're doing, and it's not training. And then I know a lot of people who really like to say that they don't train, and then you watch the way that they go about your climbing, and you're like, yeah, you're training. That's exactly what training looks like. And I think that's something that people get confused a lot with. I think right now, if you go into a climbing gym, a lot of people seem to mistake working out with training. And I'm not really sure exactly where that comes from. But to me, training is just a long-term plan for progression that takes into account, specific strengths and weaknesses, and hones in on different aspects of climbing at specific times in order to accomplish specific goals. And in that way, you can only ever climb outside and still absolutely be training.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also go into the gym and do a super rugged TRX workout and absolutely not be training at all.
Right. Because you're not being methodical about it?
I think for me, for something to be training, it has to have a specific goal, and it has to have specific steps to progress towards that goal. If you're just doing core every Thursday and you do the same 33 sit-ups every time or whatever it is, there's no progression there, and there's no real specific goal other than being like, oh, well, I want a stronger core. Like, well, why? Right. Why do you want a stronger core? Like, the core is like a whole huge complex system of all these different trunk muscles, and it's not just your abs, and it's like, that's one of those things that people toss around core a ton, and that could mean anything almost.
Right. So it's like this idea of like climbing for fitness or working out for fitness.
Yeah, like
I mean,
climbing,
glamour muscles.
Sorry, say it again.
Or cool glamour muscles.
Cool glamour muscles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm all about people climbing for whatever the reason they want to climb for. There's no real good or bad reason to do it. Like, if you're climbing and you're having fun and you're getting out of it what you want to get out of it, then awesome. I mean, it's a great tool for fitness. People want to like have that be their CrossFit essentially, and after work they go climbing, and you know, they're in better, healthier shape for that. Then I think that's amazing. You know, not everyone needs to be trying to push the bleeding edge of the sport or trying to like totally maximize their genetic potential and blow a bunch of pulleys along the way. Like, that's not necessary for everyone to have fun. That doesn't need to be the end all be all.
Like, if you're going into the gym or you're going out to the crag, training is just like having a plan or having like some sort of objective for the day, or having like a greater idea of like what you're working towards.
Yeah, so a training plan is typically made up of different cycles that look at increasingly smaller or larger bits of time. So like a microcycle could be a sequence of like 1 to 5 or 7 days or whatever. And then you can zoom out a little bit more and talk about like a mesocycle, which for climbing is I typically look at as seasons, so 4 per year, and then a macro cycle, which is the whole shebang. Like, where do I want to be in 5 years, or longer, or whatever? Like, how am I going to progress through my climbing career on the whole? And that's definitely not something that everyone needs to be worried about. I think we, for whatever reason, have kind of made it so that anyone who's in the gym feels like they need to be training because they're in the gym. And you can really just go into the gym and climb and have like a really good time and continue to progress and just hang out and do whatever. You don't need to be super structured or OCD about all this stuff, but if you want to, then there's a whole ton of room for that. And that's something that I find really fun. Like I enjoy the mundane and annoying parts of training. To me, that kind of stuff's really fun. And I enjoy planning it. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy the results from it. But if it's not something you enjoy doing, you can really progress a lot in climbing without ever having to like be writing in a notebook every time you go climbing.
How do you do that?
How do you progress without writing in a notebook?
without having to put thought into it all the time.
I think
and fixate on it.
I think the nice thing about climbing is that it's really, really fun. Something I say a lot is the hardest thing about climbing is not climbing, because it's a blast. And if you do it all the time, you end up getting hurt. So really just making sure that you're not climbing too much is kind of the beginning of that. If you're climbing 7 days a week, you're not really giving your body that much time to recover. And it's those recovery periods that actually allow your body to get stronger. It's not, when you go to the gym, you're breaking yourself down. When you're resting, you're building yourself back up.
Right.
And so if you just go climbing and allow yourself to recover from sessions, climbing itself is something that really, especially with like the grading system and everything and the kind of people it attracts, it's a challenge. And I feel like nearly everyone I've ever talked to about climbing would always love to climb harder.
Mm-hmm.
And so just by going climbing and trying harder and harder things and allowing yourself to recover between sessions, that's essentially a basic training plan. And you can get a heck of a lot stronger just doing that. And then the examples are all around of people who don't hangboard 3 times a week and don't do a bunch of weighted pull-ups and go out and year to year continue to progress and continue to climb at some of the highest levels in the sport. And granted, some of those people are mutants and they're really fun to watch, but it doesn't necessarily give us a ton of information to go on.
Right.
But nevertheless, like just climbing is a workout, is stimulus for your body, and you can go a really long way with that.
Do you think you can improve faster by hangboarding and campusing and getting really into training? I get in the minutia of it, like, oh, I deadlifted 5 pounds more. Oh, I did like 4.5 on the campus rounds.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely, there's an opportunity to progress faster than just going climbing. And what that typically looks like is putting more thought and more planning into what you're climbing and how you're climbing and when, and how that stimulus is going to progressively increase over time with periods of rest. And then there's all sorts of supplemental exercises that you can do to help play on the climbing that you're already doing. And that kind of stuff is, weightlifting, hangboarding, campus board, all of that. But it's important to realize that just because your hangboard numbers are going up, or just because you're campusing further, or you deadlift more, whatever it is, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be climbing better or climbing harder climbs. You can look at those different exercises and track progression within those, but without really understanding how to climb and how to move really well, and without actually reinforcing that with actually going climbing, it's really difficult to take all those increases in raw strength or power and actually translate them to increased climbing performance.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess, are there any good ways to focus your training on getting better, like taking your strength and applying it to climbing more? Yeah.
So the big question then becomes, how do I train technique? Like that's a question I get asked a ton, and it's simultaneously like super simple, but also really hard to answer, because it really just looks like going climbing and just trying really hard. Where I see people diverge is there are people who will go climbing and they are presented with a boulder problem or a sport climb or whatever it is, some sort of climbing objective, and they don't feel like they can do it. And they either say, oh, I'm not strong enough, like I can't hold that crimp,
right,
or I can't like pull through on that hold, or whatever it is. And then they stop trying and they go to the campus board or they go to the hangboard and they train for 2 weeks. And then they try and come back to that climb and try and do it again. And then they're like, oh, like I feel a little better, but I still can't do it. And they're like, well, I'm just going to go hangboard more and campus more.
Right.
And then they go back and it's just this cycle. And then eventually they probably will overpower that move and then do that climb. And then it's been reinforced to them that, oh, hangboarding and campus boarding is what's going to get me up my projects.
Right. It works.
It works. Or that another person can be presented with exactly the same situation, and you just see them, they'll fall, they get off, they look at the climb, they're like, okay, like that didn't work, what else can I try? And they try something else, and then they try something else, and then they try something else. And the whole time that they're trying something else and not saying, oh, I'm not strong enough, and then walking away and hangboarding, that's them learning technique. That's them figuring out what they can and can't do given certain holds, given a certain wall angle, given certain positions. And over time, that kind of learning turns into climbing technique. And that's been my experience personally, and also with the people that I've coached. When I was working with people, the way that I would teach technique essentially is I would make climbs for them that accentuated some specific thing, and then they would try them until they did them. But I knew I would make them so that I knew that they had the required strength to do it.
Right.
But I knew that they would have to overcome something technically in order to succeed on the climb.
Like a drop knee or a heel hook or
Yeah.
some specific movement.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's really difficult because it requires you to try something with the conviction of knowing that you are strong enough to do it, but also possibly being wrong about that. Like that to me is kind of the coolest part about like trying to get better at climbing, is just that sort of blind willingness to try really, really hard.
Right.
And
like believe you can do it.
And believe you can do it and know you can do it, but still be able to walk away empty-handed and still hold on to that belief and then come back time after time after time until eventually you do it.
Right.
And that's where I see like the best climbers diverge from the people who are just pretty good at it, is the people who will go back over and over and over and over again, and they never give up, and it never occurs to them that they might not be able to do it. And that's a super powerful learning tool.
Yeah. Do you think there's a good way to build that belief in yourself? Like that sort of confidence? I wonder if that's like something you can train as well.
I don't know.
Yeah. Huh.
I don't know. I don't know if it's kind of an inherent personality trait, or if there are certain situations that can bring it out in people. But it's definitely something to kind of, look inside about and figure out how you actually deal with failure and what that means to you and what you're willing to kind of go through to get better. I mean, a really good example, Jeremy Fullerton. Do you know him?
Yeah, I know Jeremy.
So he's been or had been working on this roof boulder out in Matthew Winters Park called Fantasia.
Oh, right.
That super long roof boulder, like 30-some moves or something. And I think he put over 50 days into it or something over a couple of years. And the thing about that climb is you basically, like once you get it figured out, you can do all the parts, like no problem.
Right.
But then there's this one move right at the end that's kind of like a dynamic stab to a small 2-finger pocket.
Right.
And you can climb, and it's basically over when you stick that. The next hold's a jug and it's done. And so you can climb that entire boulder problem and then not send it. on this one move. That's not actually that hard. It's just really particular and super accurate, and you can feel good and still miss it.
Right.
And for dozens and dozens of sessions, Jeremy basically climbed this whole boulder problem over and over and over and over again just to fumble on the pocket. And he could have very easily just like not climbed that boulder problem and gone somewhere else and had other success and, you know, done whatever, any other boulder problem but that boulder problem. But he went back over and over and over again until he did it.
Right.
He just did it this season. And like that to me, like that's the sickest thing ever. I mean, it's cool when people go in and have like quick success on hard boulder problems, but like the reason Jeremy hasn't even been climbing that long, less than 10 years, I think. And his tick list is super impressive. And he's gotten really good in a short period of time. And it's because of that. It's because he doesn't give up. It doesn't really occur to him that he might not be able to do something. He just goes back and tries it until he does it. Right. Sam Weir is another really good example of that. Another person who hasn't even been climbing for 10 years and has climbed V15. Right. And works a regular 40-hour-a-week job. And he just... The joke for a long time was like, can Sam climb a hard boulder without a headlamp on? Right, yeah. And just because he worked in the day and then he would go out and he would climb at night, and he went to the project over and over and over again and was like, and I've talked to him about it, and he's like, yeah, I just never think that I can't do it. And he just continues to go back, and then he does it. Yeah. And you don't always see that kind of conviction from people, and that is like, to some level or another, that's that kind of key component that really allows people to progress in climbing, whether they are training like what you would think of as training, like training exercises, hangboard, campus board, that stuff in the gym, or whether just the way that they go about their session as a learning experience. Because even Sam, Sam trains in the gym too. And he's super dedicated. He was trying to climb this like V14 in Eldo by himself because just after work. Over Stoker. He's just psyched and he wants it. And he fell off the finish hold and snapped his foot and basically crawled out of the backcountry and has been in a boot for weeks, climbing one-footed, canvassing, hangboarding. And he's really strong right now, and he just got the boot off, so it's about to go down. But like it's almost less important exactly what you do compared to like the conviction with which you do it. 10-second hangs on the hangboard, 6-second hangs on the hangboard, 7 and 3 repeaters. Right. Like that kind of minutia, like it doesn't. It's all gonna work. Right. You know, like if you progressively hang on a smaller and smaller edge, or hang with slightly more weight, or hang a little bit longer, or give yourself less rest. If you're exposing your body to some sort of a progressive stimulus, it's gonna adapt. You're gonna get stronger. But if you don't have that kind of conviction, like whether or not you're actually going to be able to put that into practice, like that remains to be seen.
Cool. Yeah, that seems like the best advice you could give someone. It seems like it matters more about just going to the gym and doing it.
Someone who's got these like great one-liners and stuff, and I have a ton of respect for this guy Steve Bechtel from Climb Strong. He's got a few things that like totally have like stuck with me for such a long time, and one of them is the best training plan is the one that you do. Right. And that, like, I've seen just some incredible training plans on paper, and then people don't do them. Right. And then it's not the plan's fault. It's like you didn't do the work. Yeah. And I've seen like the most bogus training plans where I'm like, what is this person thinking? But they're in there doing it
Right.
all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and they get wicked strong.
Yeah.
And it's because they're doing it. They're in there doing the work, and then that pays off.
Yeah. I wonder if it is like that translation, like they just have a plan and they're focused. And so whatever they're doing, it's just like, okay, they're setting themselves up into this like focused mindset.
Yeah.
And they can translate that to their climbing or their project more.
For sure. And I think it's one of those things where if you can make it so painfully simple that you'd basically have to try not to do your training program
Right.
to not do it. Like that's really where I try to get people to start these days, is like, what's the simplest thing that we can do? Like the one thing that we can tweak that you can definitely do time and time again that will help you progress. And we do that one thing, and then like once you prove that you can do that, and then you do that and you see benefit from it,
Right.
you kind of get a little bit more addicted.
Yeah.
and then we add one more thing, like
Right.
one more level of discipline on top of that. And then you do that, and then you get the benefit from that, and then you get a little bit more addicted. And then it can grow in complexity. But something that I think is really important is you can, if you're not doing anything at all, and all you have to do is a little bit,
Right.
and you're going to get better. And if you try and pile on this like huge, like go from nothing to this huge complex training plan where every day your week is scheduled, like all your sets, all your reps, like
Right.
you get to climb for this many hours, this many days a week, that's just too much. You're not going to be able to actually execute that. And then you're going to constantly feel bad about all the training that you're not doing, and then you might get a little better, you might not, and then all of a sudden you've got this bad taste in your mouth for like what training should or shouldn't be, and you're like, I don't train, like training sucks, whatever, I just want to go climbing. And you really could have just gone climbing all along,
Right.
and then done like 2 sets of pull-ups at the end of your session,
Right.
2 times a week. That's it, and you could have got just as strong.
Right.
And then you can slowly build that up. And it's really not as complicated as it's made out to be all the time.
Cool. Well, yeah, thanks for coming in. That was super helpful. I think everybody's psyched to know a little more about training and how to be efficient with it. Hopefully this interview will help people get out there and do a little more in their climbing.
Thanks for having me down.
Yeah, cool.
Well, that's the end of the show. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Want to thank Will Anglin from Tension Climbing, as well as Matt Samet and James Lucas for joining. And please make sure to subscribe to the podcast at Apple Podcast or wherever you get your podcast. Theme music was provided by Small Houses at smallhouses.band. That's it, everybody. See you at the next Basecamp.